All right, here's one more. We're going to look at taking a fraction and make it into a decimal. Just want to show you an example that starts with a mixed number. So we've got 1 and 3/8 here. So the process is no different than when it's just a fraction by itself. But I just want to have one here that you can see. So number 16 is 1 and 3/8, and we are going to make that into a decimal. What I kind of tell my students is that this whole number is already ready. There's not anything that we have to do to make it part of the decimal. When we say 1 and 3/8, we're talking about the decimal point being one and then the rest of our decimal comes behind it. So we can kind of cover up that 1 for a minute and treat this as just 3/8 that we're going to be dividing. And when we're done, the 1 just goes in the 1's place like it normally would. So we're looking at this as 3/8. Again, I always tell the students, it is the numerator that we are dividing. That means that when you set this problem up, the numerator has to be under the division symbol. If they set it up incorrectly, obviously they will get the wrong answer. So we are dividing 3 by 8. We are not dividing 8 by 3. When they do this, everything else is the same from a previous video that I made. They are trying to see how many times 8 goes into 3. It does not go into 3. So we follow our division rules. 0 times 8 is 0. We subtract, and then we go to bring down. There's nothing to bring down, but we need something to bring down so that we can keep going with this and figure out what our decimal number is. So we know at this point we need something to bring down, so we're going to place a decimal point here and a 0 that we can bring down. Don't forget directly above this decimal point to put the 1 for your answer. Now we have a 0 we can bring down. Now we're looking at 8 into 30 instead of 8 into 3. We know that 8 goes into 30 3 times because 3 times 8 is 24. 8 times 4 is 32, so that's too much. I want to take a second because on some bigger problems, you're going to need to do this, okay? Students in 6th grade probably know that this is going to be 3 right here because they know the fact 3 times 8. You'd be surprised, sometimes they don't. If they don't know what they need to get to 30, I tell them there is no secret, there is no special fast trick that they can use. The only thing they can do is figure it out. So even if they've got to start with 8 times 1 to see what it is, and 8 times 2 to see what it is, to get closer and closer to 30, there's no shame in doing that. They've got to figure it out. So if they need to do this to make sure they're using 3 instead of 4 or instead of 2 or whatever, they've got to come over here to the side and they've got to write down and list some multiplication facts so they know which number to use. In this case, we've proved that we need 3 because 8 times 3 is 24. So we don't want to go over 30. So 8 is going to go into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. We're going to subtract. The difference is 6. Students need to borrow. They can show me that. Most of them recognize the difference without having to borrow, but it is 6. We realize that 8 cannot go into 6, so we continue to add zeros and bring them down so that we can manage it. We need to get 8 into 60, okay? A lot of students are not going to know how many times 8 goes into 60 unless they know their facts, so they may have to add to their list. They may have to come over here and say 8 times 5 is 40, 8 times 6 is 48. They may have to continue to go until they get closer to 60, okay? 8 times 7 is 56, so we are very close. Will we go over with another one? 8 times 8 is 64, yes, so we've got to stick with 7 times. That's what we're looking for. So it goes in 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. We subtract again. The difference is 4. Once again, do the borrowing if you need to. And we can't put 8 into 4, so we need another 0. Bring it down, and then we notice all of a sudden we've gotten to a point where we know something that will go in there, and if we don't, we've already got it in our list over here. So we know that we need 5, 5 times 8 is 40. And finally, we've gotten to 0, so we know this is a terminating decimal that stops at the thousandths place. So we've got 0.375. When we started, this was a mixed number with a 1 in front of the fraction. So the 1 is going to be in front of our decimal number that we just found. So we go in, we add those digits to the proper place value, and we know that 1 3/8 as a fraction is equal to 1 375 thousandths as a decimal. I'll have the students add that in over here. And then, of course, keep their work together that they're showing on a separate sheet of paper so that we can staple those things together and prove our work when we come back. This method works for any fraction or any mixed number. Once again, these fractions on this worksheet did not need to be simplified because they're already in simplest terms. But if we had a larger fraction that could be simplified, we would definitely want to do that before we start doing the division, just to make our lives easier. So anyway, I hope this helps. Watch these as many times as you need to. This is something that seems very difficult at the beginning for a lot of my 6th grade students. We unfortunately never have the time in class to do this enough times, repetitively until they're really, 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 really good at it. So it's always encouraged to do some of this at home to get good at it. We hit this topic several times throughout the year, but the curriculum always moves fast and we're always on to something else. So any chance you can get for some extra practice will be helpful. Thanks.